Yes, that's more like it. Uh, yep, there we are. We're live. And good morning, good evening. The Hunker. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am Sensei Al Bob, your griot. And what's a griot? It's someone who tells you stories that, in a shamanic frame, allow a little adept at my feet to hear the story and think deeper than just what they see in the material advertised propagandic commercial world. So here it is. Last day, I walked the 2 miles to talk to you guys, to wish you a merry, 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 happy, happy, happy tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And what does that mean? Well, go read Beth, Shakespeare. And remember, all of this channel, Dreamy Dreamland, is here just for your entertainment's sake. I'm not trying to sway you or start a mission or a movement, or the only movement I have is my bowel movement, and I enjoy those. That's one of God's greatest gifts is our bowel movement. And because it lets us feel and experience the evacuation of the negativity and fecal matter of our consciousness. And if you were to, when you kind of squeeze that brick out, if you just kind of think about all the negativity and put it in that brick and send it on its way. Now, that was just a demonstration of why this show is not for children. And when I say children, I'm not really defining it by any singular age group, because most people can be childish. I know I can, but, Buddha was on the side of the road looking at the beautiful magnificence of nature and was watching a little bud, and in his presence of seeing that, he was in his connection to all his relations, and thus he was vibrating with photonic light. Hey there, Divine Fish. Good to see you, buddy. My friend. Yes, I am. I'm your friend. I am all of the cadre's friend, right? I am your sensei. Let's say. Learn that if you just relax and feel the sensation of the brown tunnel, it can be the most overwhelming thing. But of course, right? Because what you are is awake at the moment. When you are awake, you are totally there. You're here. And I keep telling my adepts that the most important thing is to breathe, right? Second most important thing is your intent in breathing. Because when you are with that intent, you bring your whole avatar into connection with all your relations. So let's do a little bit of that. And now, if you obstruct your nose just a little bit, you can still breathe through it, but you're cutting it down by 10 to 15, 20, 30%, depending on it. It makes your lungs work harder, right? And it increases the intent on your breath. Smell the roses, breathe out the candles, right? Blow out the candles. So. Don't cut it off completely, just by 10, 15, 20%. By doing this, you make your diaphragm come up and squeeze your lungs. And by doing that, it pushes whatever gunk you have in your lungs out. Whatever bugs or crap or whatever. And there's a guy, John B., from England or Scotland or Wales or wherever he is. He's over there in the UK. Old guy, really old. Makes me look like a youngster, And he is there. He is awake. He is present. He is like always in that state, right? And he speaks really slow. I try to, but he really does. And people send him little questions, and he has nothing, he lives in a nice little stone house out in the middle of the woods. And some guy comes and gets him and videotapes his little talks and then edits them or whatever he does and then puts them up on his website, right? And that guy, he is there, and because every time I watch him, I feel joy in my heart. And that's what I'm trying to go for with you guys, joy in your hearts, spiritual unfoldment channel. Yep, that's him, right? And he's the bomb, I'm just your sensei, your griot, but he's, I tell you stories. He's present. I mean, I go and meditate every time I do a show so I can imprint onto the digital divide here a shamanic tone, right? And but I'm still that cheeky monkey that my grandma kept hitting me in the butt with the towel with. And so I'm just going to sit here a moment so you can enjoy the presence of nature and me and breathing. That little rush you hear over the side is the river. I'm in this holler and I'm in a valley, right? So over there, 5 or so miles is a county road. And as I drive, it's 5 or so miles. But as the crow flies, it's maybe a mile or two. And, these forests are new forests, so it's really brambly. A lot of stickers, a lot of berries. Really, in springtime and summer, a lot of berries. Fish is he's doing what I do in my writing. I squunch words together, so you kind of have to. When I really want you to not work too hard, I capitalize each letter, but which is great because that's what I do, and it makes you. It's a code, and so it makes you kind of, take it apart. See ya. So thanks, Fish, for reading my xratted.blogspot.com. You can go there. And I'm still working away on Legend. And pretty much, the first, how I write is I write every day and put it on a clipboard. And then when I got an idea for a novel, I take chunks of the clipboard and put it on a new file, right? So up at xratted.blogspot.com, I have lots of short stories, novels, essays, and the things I'm working on recently. So Legacy was the last one I worked on. And that's like 80% done, and it's up there. And then I came up with Legend, and I'm writing that now. And so pretty much if you go up there, you'll see Legend number 1 and I think number 2. But meaning to put it up in there, I'd have to keep my finger on the copy of the put it in blue and then export it into that. Or I can just put the link to my that document up in the cloud. And that only takes bing, 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 it's done, right? And it's up in the cloud. instead of being there, right? So I haven't been able to do the previous because I've probably written a legend over 20 times, but it's still pretty much the same. xratted.blogspot.com. You will see it. Let's see. I will. Right. So my character, the voice that I'm speaking as, there are a lot of characters in Legend. I try to get everybody in there. And the person who is the character, Nick and Dante, is the reincarnation of Adam, right? With all of humans' foibles. And so that character goes in and out of being male and female through the story, right? To the point where, as I'm writing about young Owl, Double Doctor, who is, the shamanic person of the court of Ashencroft, in one paragraph, when I'm using he and she, I just keep going between he and she, So at that, even that one time, our hero is male and female, but mostly at that point when she is in the great hall of the hidden hand, of the great leader, the Donald. And I pretty much put everything from 2020 into this, but I turned it on its head, right? So there's nobody that's me, I'm going to sue you. No, sorry. You spell things wrong. Why, that's not that person, the Mitch, the great Mitch, the great Mitch is first name's Moscow Mitch, right? And I spell everything wrong. And he's a worm, like a slithery kind of larvic kind of worm, double chin, slick. You can almost see the organs through his skin. Anyway, so I got everybody in there, but I misspell their names and genders and species. So it's all good. It's all good. But if you go to xratted, you can see Legend in its first form, but it's pretty much all there. I've like wordsmithed it in the last 20 or so versions, and I'm like up to E 9E. I go through the whole alphabet. It's like what the Weather Service does for storms, I do for my editions, right? My emotions. I don't want to feel alone. Yes. Thank you, Dar. Thank you, Fish. Double turtle. Double. That guy's got 15 double chins, right? And guys, if you don't think none of this, what we're going through, is scripted, I mean, everything is scripted, it's like, and they're such bad actors. I mean, the Donald, he reads, he can't, nothing. That's why he does everything in tweets, because he doesn't have a single, spontaneous anything. He is so, since his handler, Larry Cohen, the guy who made the hit list with the lady who wrote, I really liked what's her name's books, Fountainhead and et al. But when I realized she was the person who made the blacklist for the cultural folk, it's really horrific what people can do for just chump chains and what they think they believe in. I think it is because they have overwhelming impotence. Yes, pretty much. And what brings them that is that they've been hollowed out by the manufactured consent of the hidden hand. And again, everything, there's nothing. One time I was, back in the day, I was in a hotel room, and this place was a suite, and it had so many TVs in that suite. It was unfriggin' believable. I mean, it had one in the bathroom, and that, had a little kitchen nook, and it had a bedroom, living room. And those were the kind of suites I would stay in. One next to the jacuzzi. Um, when I worked for the Desperate Lawyers, that was part of my, put me in the most, forget 4-star. I want a 10-star hotel that allows my dogs to be there, and that you have a doggy manicurist, and a massage therapist for my dogs, for me too. So, so I was in this place and all these TVs, and I kind of, as I could, put them so I could watch them all from the bed, right? And I was watching MSNBC, CNN, Fox, about 5 other kind of satellite all news channels, and I was just watching them. And at a certain point, they were all saying the same thing from a different, point of view. But same words. It was unbelievable. It was obviously one guy wrote the script, handed it out to everybody, and they all read it. And no one was thinking that somebody like me would be watching them all simultaneously on different screens, and they were saying the same friggin' thing. And then I started looking for them. I started seeing in local news was saying the same thing as these channels were. And back in 2014, when I was really, really sick and I couldn't really work, but I could get around. And I was getting around trying to wire myself into some kind of medical something. And I was still up at school by myself. And no, John had purchased, I guess it was 15. John had purchased a school, and he had thrown me out for the first time. And so I was first living in my car, and then a friend of mine who was a minister, and he was part of what I called the usual suspects, all the progressives would meet and try and figure out something. And they'd say the same stuff and nothing would happen. And I would constantly say, well, you guys are. Anyway, so he saw me in a car and said, you living in your car? And I said, yeah, look at it. I'm living in my car. I said, what happened in school? I said, well, because I used to take him up there and put him on a hammock and meditate him and have him see his better self. Anyway, that motivated him into getting a gig from this church that was right in the middle of town, right in the middle of Roanoke, right across the street from the main TV station, right across the street from the main Roanoke Times, right across the street from the court building, the sheriff's, the police, and the municipal building, within a block, right there. And that church had been, was almost 100 years old, or older than 100 years. And it was a beautiful little church, and really exquisite. And it was down to 40 people, right? That winter before, it was when they had a bad flu, and pretty much everybody died. It was a harbinger to today. And there were 40 or so folks, and they were all white, and they were old, and they go, oh, we don't want to die like our friends did and leave this church and have it become a coffee house or something, or torn down and turn into a because they were trying to get it, nationally accredited as a landmark, and they knew nothing on how to do anything. So they got this young guy, my friend, to be their minister, to say, do something about church so we can be remembered. So he got me to be the community action coordinator. And so he said, you can come and stay at the church, but you got to be very down low. So I went in this church, and the, sanctuary was beautiful. You could fit 300 people, had a pipe organ, had a, one of those bell things that you played on a keyboard. It was really, and the acoustics was amazing. And they had a choral loft up there, and they had two. Big one when they had 100 people singing, and the little one above where the little altar was, or big altar. It was nice. And it was a great stage. And, it had this room in the back where you could come on either side, and that went down to staircases. And the back of the building was a school that, had 3 floors with these mahogany doors that opened up into a space that was 50 feet by 300 feet, right? And then when you put the doors, you had 4 pretty big classrooms. So 3 floors by 4, 12 big classrooms, and downstairs had a gigantic kitchen, 9-burner Garland stove, fryer-later, walk-in fridge, you name it, and a tremendous amount of food. Basically a food warehouse, which they went because they were church. They got food and they stuck it in there. They didn't really give it away. And, they would have meals for, this, that, and the other thing, but they didn't feed people. They didn't give the food away. They didn't do anything. And then they had a big, open, it was like, the community room that they had these big tables that you could fit 10, 15 people at. And they had about 20 of those. So you could sit down easily 100 to 200 people and feed them. So what did I do? I said, fine, no problem. You want people in this church? Right away. So I went on the street. I made a little flyer, and I was putting it especially in all the municipal buildings and, public spaces. This church, we're coming alive. And so in that, I got a call from these two grandmas, Jamaican grandmas, came by, and they went down to the office where there was this white, lady who was the gatekeeper of the office, and they were looking for me. And I just happened to be sitting there talking to them because all the white folk were like, "Who is this guy?" And they didn't know I was staying in their church. I was basically coming every Sunday, an hour before the ceremony, because all the old people would come real early, and I would sit down and talk to them. So, how's your day, Martha? What'd you do? How, had them all talk. They had this lady was a Bible. She gave Bible classes. That maybe 3 people would show, and I would show up, and I would not try to show her up, but try to make her a better Bible teacher, right? And so, first she was very threatened, and then she was very nice. And then, so all the old people were like, well, he's weird, but I like him. And so once I got them into that mode, I basically then brought people in. And so these 2 Jamaican ladies are sitting there she goes, this guy Al, is he around? And the lady looks at me and she goes, no, he's not here now. And I said, wait, ladies, what do you want? And she goes, well, we'd like to talk to him because he's, we got the flyer about, bringing a community together. I said, oh, that's great. So I said, let's go outside in the sun because it was kind of getting to be spring. It was February. It's one of those warm February days. They had a really, even though they're right in the middle of Southern, they had this little chunk of greenness, a garden in the back that somebody spent a lot of effort to make nice. So I said, let's go sit back there. And it was kind of walled in, so even if it was cold, the sun always shined in there, and there was no wind, and there were nice chairs, and so anyway, sat back there, and these ladies said, "Listen, we've been here a year, and we want to start a restaurant. We love to cook. We love to feed people. We don't have the money. We can't have a license. We can't have this. Can't have that." And I said, look at a church, nonprofit. You could do that here, and we could have everyone. You could feed we have tons of food. And I took them into that kitchen and they nearly fell over, and I showed them the walk-in freezer with tons of food that no one's eating. And then I brought them into our warehouse where there was all this canned food no one's eating. And so I said, why don't we start a restaurant? And we're going to call it the No Fear Cafe. I'm going to have everyone, all the judges, the police, the lawyers, the doctors, the nurses, the train workers, the street workers, the homeless people, the poor people, the forgotten people, all free meal, or you donate what you can, right? So just as we were talking about this, and they said, what about the permit? I said, this is a church, nonprofit. You don't have to permit anything, and as long as we don't charge, as long as it's a donation, be all good. And so my friend, the minister, came in. He always came in like at 11. I had to get out I would sleep in the church, and I would to leave around 6 in the morning. I would go down to there was this place that had breakfast. That was nice. And so I would go down there and have breakfast. Or I would go to the Texas Tavern, which was open 24/7, 7 days a week, 360 days a year, since 1928. And these guys were a hoot. And about 2 in the morning, you go into Texas Tavern, there were aliens in there having hot dogs. They had hot dogs. They had what was known as a Colorado, which was a cheeseburger with an egg on it. and that was usually my favorite. And so, and that was 99 cents, right? And they had really great beans, really great coffee, and they had sour milk, right? And they made sour milk, everything. So biscuits, pancakes. So I would get up early and be gone before that old lady showed up, right? And I basically slept up in the attic. You know, I moved a lot of my clothes and stuff up there and had a little roll-out bed. And you had to go up a ladder to get up there. And you know, my legs were like, forget about it. And that's why this guy made me sleep. You know, I had to crawl up there. You know. So anyway, he walks in, and the ladies are there, and they really turn on the charm to him. He said, "Listen, we're going to have a restaurant, no beer cafe. You know, people come in, have lunch, and you know, I've already advertised out into the hinterlands, and we're mostly going to have really rich people. And I'm just going to say, go around with a basket and say, donate. You know." And the rich people will throw in 20s, and the poor people who have nothing will throw in a quarter, and it'll all work out. And the guy kind of, yeah, I mean, he was smart enough to go, yeah, that's a good idea. So, like within a week, we had it. I had a big sign put out front with balloons, and and these people, being Jamaican, were black, and so they were living in a black neighborhood, and their granddaughter and grandson were kind of movers and shakers, and the granddaughter was a dancer, a ballerina, and her husband was, and so they had the cutest little kid, and so they, you know, I went around and I talked to every judge, every you know, bureaucrat, everybody, every doctor, because Carillion had a lot of offices around there, and I rolled, you know, they had a nice Xerox machine. I rolled out, you know, 100 or two flyers, taped them up everywhere, and we first day we had like, you know, 30, 40 people, right? And they were all, you know, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, so everybody threw in $20 easy. And some people, one guy put in a Benjamin, you know. So the first day we had close to $1,000. And the way I had it worked out was all the cover charges, we figured those out, and they were basically $40 um, a day, right? And the old ladies would get everything else because all the food and everything was donated, right? And they would buy the fresh stuff and the special stuff and stuff like that. So we almost had $1,000. So the ladies walked out of there with like $900, and they were like, ah. And they didn't have to get any permits or taxes, or, you know, it was all nonprofit, right? So they came and so they started baking up, and they made those little pie things, and we were selling them by the dozen. So next, you know, that whole week we made like $5,000. The first 5 days we made like, or first 4 days we made, you know, $5,000. And so tremendous success. Newspaper wrote about it. Church got a lot of coverage, right? So my next task, I was involved with this community, that Sabat community, and there were, you know, there was the usual suspects there too, and there were a couple other great people. This lady who ran a thing called the Hope Center, and she decided, no one's doing this, no one's taking care of the homeless, no one's taking care of anything. I'm going to. So she, with money out of her pocket, she wasn't rich. She rented a little storefront and brought people in, showed them how to use computers, showed them, you know, got them clothes, got them jobs. They have no place, you know, they could sleep on the floor. The kids, the buses, the school buses would, instead of taking them to, you know, in that neighborhood, they would take them to there. And she would watch after them until their parents could come and pick them up. And she would stay there until the last kid was picked up by their parents. And sometimes she stayed there at 8, 9 o'clock. So it was her and her son, and he was a great. He had, you know, the school, the black neighbor. See, you know, back in the day, well, schools were segregated, and then Brown came, and they couldn't do that anymore. So in Virginia, they basically all closed all public schools, and white people just sent their kids to private schools. So poor white people and everybody else of color lost out, right? Kind of what they're going through right now with COVID. And so anyway, I went to her and a few other people, and you know, within a few weeks, we had the church filled up. The church was filled up with black people, Hispanic people, LGBT people, right? There were no white people. I tried to go to white, communities, and they no, don't want that. We have our own church. Thank you very much. Black folk, they came. So there's 40 black folk, and what we did after that, all those people were like not, because black folk are relatively conservative, and so folks who had a job, were relatively old, were in a church in most of their life. They didn't leave those, but there were a lot of pretty much everybody who I got to go to church was relatively young, under 30, and so made it really a community. Had those people hanging in the No Fear Cafe, even after lunchtime, because lunch was from 11 to 3. And then it just kind of, you could get stuff, but it was no longer the meal, and people just hung out and talked. And the guy, he was, I said, we need to write grants. And he was, and so he got people from, like me, back in the day, I was part of Vista. This is still existing. So they were sending people from Vista to this church, and they were useless. I mean, they were all caught up in stupid, had to have things on the internet. I'm a big fan of, communicating on the internet, but running your entity from it, because they had all these things like Trello, and they couldn't program it right, and it was just mass confusion. And I met this, so every Tuesday, I would have this thing called Action Tuesday, where I would make a big pot of soup, rice, and beans. A different soup, always rice, because we had a ton of rice. I mean, tons of rice, tons of beans, and we constantly were, cooking Jamaican rice and beans. So we always had 5-gallon thing on the stove, and so every Tuesday, Action Tuesday, right? And you could, if you want to give a lecture, you want to do this, you want to do that, you could, but you couldn't just whine. You had to have a positive moving forward. And you didn't have to be, I don't care what your ideology, moving forward for the good of the community. That was it. And so that was Action Tuesday. And one day this girl comes in, and she's pretty hot, and she just kind of says, "Hi there, and I'm Amy," and she goes, "You got a whiteboard?" And I said, "Yeah." So I roll it in, give her a magic marker, and she describes the cure for cancer. And it's like, and she's brilliant, endocrinologist, virologist, cancer researcher from Duke. And she puts it up on the board, and I can see fucking, this is, excuse my French, Frenching A, fracking A, this is the cure for cancer. So she puts it all out. Everybody at the meeting is like, huh? And I'm taking, a phone video of it, and so and she's dressed to kill. She got short skirt, and she goes, "Well, it's time for me to go to the bar." And and she walks out. Wait. I kind of run after her up the, hobble up the stairs. Hey, slow down. I can't walk. So I get to her in the parking lot. I said, you what? You're going to a bar? She said, "No, I manage a bar downtown." I said, "But you're brilliant. You should be, what happened to Duke?" She said, "Oh, that's a long story. I'll tell you one day." Anyway, she gives me her phone number, and she goes, "You're kind of cute. Why don't you stop by the bar? I'll buy you a drink." I said, when, and she goes, "I get there early. I manage a place from like 11 to 11. And so I go, "Okay, someday this week." And so I do. I come down there, and she's like cleaning up the fryer and she's no longer wearing a really pretty skirt and a blouse. She's, got her T-shirt on and her work boots, and she's, working hard. And this girl's got some physique on her, So anyway, we talk, and she goes, "Hey, you got a place to live?" And I go, "Not really." She goes, "I need a roommate." I go, "What's it cost?" She goes, $180 a month. I said, "I think I can afford that." I said, "Includes everything, right?" She goes, "Yep." And she goes, "You get your own room." And I go, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." I said, "Where is it?" So she goes, "You want to walk over to see it?" I said, Yeah. So because the place wasn't open, she was cleaning things out. So she locks it up. We walk about 8 blocks, and we walk into the funk neighborhood where the drugs, the prostitution, all the funk is in Roanoke. And that is on a think it's called Patterson, and it used to be where all of the upper um, train guys back in the 1890s had their big Victorian houses, and so there are all these, and it's beautiful. The big road goes up a hill, and all these Victorian houses, and it kind of looks down into town. It looks down at the railroad, looks down at the James River. Very pretty. So, and the railroad yard is kind of behind them. It's really on both sides. It's railroad because Roanoke's a railroad town. So she shows me the place. It's like on the ground. No, it's on the second floor, and there's a little staircase that goes up above the third floor into the attic. And she goes, "Look, can you get up those steps?" And actually, it was all the staircases were designed so you could walk up them, right? And so this one was kind of long and big, I could do it. And the walls were on either side, so I wouldn't fall. So I hobbled up there, and the whole attic was it was clean, hardwood floor, hardwood ceilings, right? And these out into each direction, north, east, south, were a big thing on the roof with big windows on each angle, right? So I'm looking out, I could look at, right? And so up there, the only thing that was up there were sawhorses and old doors, flat doors, early 1960s hollow cord doors, and about 10 of them. I said, "This is like heaven." And she goes, "Right, $116." And what was really great about this, all the heat of the building went up into that place and was super insulated up there and had outlets and lights, and it was perfect, right? And so I put out the sawhorses, put the tables, the the doors on them, and I had like 8 tables all the way around. I could put my stuff on them. I had my word processor, my books, and I had a big bed. That's the only thing I had from the school was the bed. And so and it was interesting because I was moving the bed from the A-frame down, and I was going to, I had no place to put it, and so I stuck it on top of my car, and it got to be windy, so I tied it down. So the day John threw me out, like, "Get out!" Without any, "Let's talk about it. I can't take it anymore. I need you out of here." No, get out! Because that morning I cooked his dinner, and cooked his breakfast for him. And he said, "Boy, that's the best breakfast I ever had." And that's what he said about every meal, because he forgot I had already made him like 800 meals. And he goes, "I'm really glad you're my friend. You're the only person who cares. You're always there for me." And then, like, an hour later, he threatens me, and just, not with anything, but with his energy. So get out. And I had pretty much my car packed. It's like subconsciously I knew this was happening, so I just got my car and drove away. And and I lived 2 days. There were different neighborhoods I knew I could stay in, and that's when my buddy came around and said, "You living in your car?" So let's see, what else are people saying here? Look at John. Isn't that John so nice? "Drive here now for New Year's. I have no money. I'm in the middle of the woods. I'm 200 miles from John, and he thinks I'm going to just drive there. And, then he can throw me out once I get there. Nah, not going to happen, Yes. So, anyway, so I'm staying with this guy, and once he shows me the place, and we start living there. And he's not the greatest cook, but he's very neat. And I realize he's a guy because he's got great breasts, and he when he's got a dress on, he's the hottest girl you ever seen. And before I realized he was a guy, we kind of made out a little, and he kissed really great, So, but one day we had a big bathtub, and I was sitting down in the living room um, listening to the radio, and he had a nice radio, and he basically, hey, can you come in here for a minute? I need some bath soaps, and I don't want to get out of the bathtub. So I got it in there, and he's floating in the water, and there's this little guy, and he's been taking the drugs to turn into a girl, so his penis is about that big. So that's when I go, whoa. I mean, that's really when I said, wow, this guy is a guy. Because up until then, I mean, the first 2 weeks until I really, really, really moved in. I mean, and I really moved in right away, but I was staying up there. I didn't like go into the space, right? And I wasn't eating much because I was trying to cut my caloric intake to lose weight and to stay alive, and I had no real, you know, I was just wiring in my medical support, and so anyway, so I realized he's a guy, and I kind of realized he was a guy because one night I kind of left the church and I went over to the bar, and this was a real gay bar that it was an Irish gay bar. I mean, it started out as like a truck driving Irish bar and then kind of eased into being gay. And I should have but I didn't, because he still looked like a great girl, and none of the guys who dressed up like girls even came close to looking like a girl. So um, one night we walked back, and it was early spring, like May, April, and he's in high heels, and I'm like hobbling. This is when I was really messed up. But walking that 20 blocks from his bar to this place was good, because the more I walked, the better my legs were. I mean, it hurt. It was hard. It was good for me. And so anyway, so we're hobbling, and we're about right there to our front door, and these, gang people come out from the shadows and want to take our money, beat us up, rape her maybe, because they think she's a girl too. And so these guys got a knife, right? And I'm looking around, and now I know pretty much all the cops because I've been involved with trying to teach them for community policing, etc. Anyway, so I've done a lot of social things in that town, from Black Lives, not Black. Well, yeah, we didn't call it Black Lives Matter then. We called it the barber shop, and we also did Occupy. Everybody they wanted to do Occupy, and so we had a meeting, we organized, we were going to do it, and everybody broke up into committees. I said, what about the police? Oh, we can't tell the police. I said, no, we have to tell the police. Oh, I'm scared to go talk to police. I said, so I will. Anybody else want to go? And that's when I met Mark and Mohaides, right, an African poet who had been in Roanoke forever. So anyway, so three of us, I called up the police chief and said, hey, I knew him from other things I did. I said, hey, can we schedule a meeting, you and the top 5 people who run your police station? And he goes, yeah, okay. So gave us time, date. We showed up, and I basically said, okay. And they all knew Mark because Mark was Mr. Politics. And they all knew Mohannes because he had been there forever. So, and I said, oh, hey, guys, how you doing? And we nice to these. And I said, listen, we're going to do this thing called Occupy, and we want to do it down in the mayor's corner. That was a park right behind the library downtown. And it was right where 420 meets Jefferson meets with the most main road, right? And there'd be a ton of cars going by. And this park made it safe. You could be in the park. It's right there on the corner. You could see it real easy. So I said, listen, we're going to do this, and we're going to, you can't tell us we can't, because it's our First Amendment right to do it. But what I want from you guys is to tell us how you want us to do it, how it'll fit, make you feel comfortable, make you, so it'll be a win-win. And the chief said, perfect idea. Great. Okay. So, Captain, you're in charge, figure out the modalities of this. And he goes, I've already talked, and I've already printed it up. The guy, the chief looks at it. he signs it. It's this place where his name is supposed to sign, and he hands it to the next in charge. That guy signs it. The three top guys sign it, and I said, "Great." And so then the chief goes, "So you want to camp out there?" And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yes. I've been watching you guys on TV, and you occupy the place, don't you want?" I said, "No, no, no. You don't understand. People doing this are bourgeois. They all have jobs. They have houses. We're going to just do this on Saturday and Sunday, maybe Friday, maybe another day, but no more than 3 or 4 days a week. And we're only going to be there when it's sunny, and we're not, going to do anything but hold signs and talk to people and have leaflets. That's all we're going to do." And the guy goes, "You mean you don't even want to march?" I said, He goes, "When you kick this thing off, don't you want to have a march?" And I said, "Well, that would be nice, but we don't want to get a permit." And he goes, "Well, no, we can deal with that." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you're doing it in a park, right? And so we don't permit people to go in the park. So what we do say is you can't gather more than 100. So how many people are you going to have to kick this thing off or have at any time?" And I said, "Probably no more than 4. I said, "I really don't know." I said, "Somewhere between 4 and 1,000, maybe." He goes, "Okay, let's say you have 1,000. And I go, "Okay." He goes, "What you do is you break it down into 12 groups of under 91, right? And they're 10 feet apart. That's all. It's like social distancing. Right? And if you do that, you don't need a permit." And he goes, "And you want to march, right? You probably want," and he lays out where you probably want to go. You want to come out here, go up Jefferson, all the way up to the bank building, walk down that street, and then come up, Market, go through the backside of the park and come into the place. That would be the best. You meet the most people. Do it on a Saturday. You'll have a lot of flyers. You'll talk to at least 10,000 people. So this guy's planned it out the max for us, right? So, and he goes, "All you do is you gather at the park, you make them into affinity groups." He had all the logo down. And he goes, "And you send them on their way with about a 5-minute space between each group. And that'll take you all of maybe 2 hours to walk through you gather everyone at 9, you start sending them off at 10, and, they will show, you'll get everyone back at the park by 1. But by that time, you will have walked through, because I have this market where all the tourists come. So you'll have you'll meet a lot of people. So we did that. And it was a tremendous success, right? And the park was full of people, 10 feet, 100 or so, 10 feet apart. We did it for a year. And the police never, ever, 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 ever walked through. They would drive by in their car, beep, and give us a thumbs up. And, because we're on the 3 main roads of that. Of course, the cops and the police station's just on the street, across the street from a big hospital. So everybody and his brother was like, "Yay!" And were really, really supportive. And the thing that killed it was our own, pandemics. Everybody just taught me, and I kept saying, "Let's do something." And the one thing that I kind of got at the group to do was, whenever we met, especially in the winter, we because people after that first, Saturday and the first few other days, we had a lot of media attention, and we had a lot of people donate a lot of money, put in we were a nonprofit through a church, and not my church, but another church, and so we had access to, so we got, and the guys who had the porta sands, they dropped 6, right, and only made us have to pay for 1, like $70 a month for 6 porta johns that they would service, and I never locked them up, so the homeless folk could go and use those porta johns for a whole year. The other thing I did was made sure that, because there were other people who loved to cook in this group other than me, there were a lot of great saints there. So they basically had a big pot of really good soup and hundreds of sandwiches, because Kroger's gave us a lot of food. And so, and this was way before I was in the church business. And so we did it for about a year. So we fed and gave a place for people to use the porta john. And one of those, I forgot who it was, but it was a like one of those high-end camping place, and they had a ton of coats, and they gave us coats, gloves, and hats and scarves and socks. And we gave everyone, and of course they had their logo on everything. So there were all these homeless people walking around Roanoke with high-end coats with the logos on them. So it was kind of funny. But everyone got a warm winter's coat, warm winter's hat, gloves, socks, scarf, and that's what organizing can do. Now I wanted to take it way further. I wanted to, you know, find people who would be good legislators, and out of that idea, the usual suspects grabbed it and ran it into the ground because all they did was have meetings at this church, just meetings and meetings, and never did anything. They wanted to be like the new Democratic Party. And it was just going to be the same old Democratic Party. And and this is when I started hanging out at the new whatchamacallit library, South County Library, and the lady who ran that place, whoever the architect of that library was good because it was a public building, and so there was the main lobby and the main book thing, and the kid section over here, and this, and then a hallway, big long hallway where the bathrooms were, and a coffee shop restaurant in a library. Duh. And along that, on the other side, there were 3 rooms that had separators, and all the walls were glass. So you walked along that hallway, you could see what was going on in those rooms. And if whoever was using it, the library would stick a thing saying, it's this group, and if those people didn't rent it, you could rent it to have your own little thing. They pretty much all those meetings had to be public access. So, the city, not city county, but the Chamber of Commerce, no, not the Chamber of Commerce, the county folk, they had their meetings there, and all the different municipalities, the police had their meetings there. And, while that police chief was there after, whatchamacallit, Occupy, I said, you should have a meeting once a week in the police. I mean, once a month in the police in the library there, and cookies, and because you get the coffee guy to sell you cookies and coffee and donuts, and you talk about issues, and I'll go there and I'll facilitate. Anyway, so that was great. So I hung out at that library a lot. I held court, and the lady who ran it, I don't know if she's still there. I don't even know if that library is still open. Great library. I mean, it was well worth whatever I paid in taxes over the years for them to build that. And they built 4 other ones kind of like it. So, I and the county meetings, I would come in and really give them a hard time because they were every 10, 15 years, they had a visioning meeting of what to do with Roanoke, right? And I did my homework and realized that all of them were just a rehash of their big plan would the transportation, we need to build this and do that. It was just a rehash of urban renewal, destroy other neighborhoods that people actually do live in, even if you're not rich, and redline others, and just the basic gentrification. And it was like full steam ahead in the 50s and 60s of the Jim Crow area. I mean, they wiped out a whole area of Roanoke and put up the Civic Center. No people realized that was a neighborhood, and was also the center. 420, the big highway, was the center of the black economy, and it was bigger than the white economy within the construct of the socioeconomic group. And I can't read what John is saying because he cursed or said things or hid. YouTube besmirched him. I can't read the stuff. Anyway, so Morgan, you're back. Let's see. People, Milton. Yep. Well, that's where I come from. All those folks there. I love Milton, Erickson, all those guys. And that's what this is. Kind of digital format of those guys. Anyway, so even though I was next to death, that's when I became my most, involved socially in the city in the socioeconomic groups because it was my one reason I stayed in Roanoke as long as I did was it was my petri dish of American culture. You could see exactly what was going on, as is the three counties here. I mean, this super duper part here is really, really wealthy people and really, really poor people, and a lot of space in between them. So no one notices either side. But the and I don't even think the rich people have realized that this COVID thing has is a common denominator between everybody, right? So uh, what does John say? I can't even, it's so sunny, and why do they make this thing black? Why don't they have a white screen with black letters? I can't read what he's saying. He then put it in a. It's really such is life. And that's why I call John the canary in the coal mine because he really is. He really can see what's going on with the American gestalt, the psyche of America and the West. Not just America. America is not. Let's see, how long have we been talking? 56 minutes. Well, it's still sunny. I thought it was going to get cloudy by now. It's supposed to rain a lot. Anyway, long story short, that period between 2012 and 2018, I was still more in Roanoke. I mean, I had kind of, over those years, moved everything I thought was important to me. But John had proved that it's not true because I left a lot of stuff at the school in this, building in the forest. And he went through everything. It was amazing. He found a beautiful box that a Tibetan monk gave me. Um, and it's made out of sandalwood and really smells great. And inside it was a picture of my great grandparents and their wedding certificate, right? And he put it on his thing and talked about it as it was like his, everything's his. And that's one of the little problems of our society is that everyone looks at it as everything is his, or it's his story, and that's why we have an issue with gender, we have an issue with race, because you know why the world is the way it is back before when the Spanish and the Portuguese were realized their big ships could go pretty much everywhere, and the world was round. Everybody knew it was round. They just told everybody it was flat to keep the people, don't let them go to Paris. Keep them back in the farm. And so, uh, John, everything isn't ha 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 ha. Because millions of people are dying. Around here, COVID is really whacked, but it's interesting. It really whacked the poor folk, right? Because and then um, the Chamber of Commerce and the rich folk who owned everything, basically they closed the hospital, meaning, well, not closed it per se, still open because they still wanted the federal money and the state money, but they have no ICU, they have no operating room, they have no X-ray, they have no nothing, no emergency room. All they have is these little places, carols that you can see a nurse practitioner who will give you pills. That's about it, right? And I have to go to their pharmacy that the drugs that I used to get free from a nonprofit at Roanoke to stay alive. So, John, do you think that's ha 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 ha? Now, I'm a smart guy. I'm a gregarious guy. I can go and talk to people and sway them. So I found, but I have to go to three different. I'm right on the border of two other states. So I found and three other counties. So in my county, forget about it. And the surrounding counties, forget about it. Just like I have to sit outside in the freezing cold to do this video for you guys, and I had to walk 2 miles. And this is all good, as long as it's not raining or snowing on me. And it's sunny. It's all good, but it's not ha 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 ha, John. You know. Well, we've been talking for a good hour or so about end of day, last days. No, the last day. It's the last day of 2020. And kids, welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. I am your sensei, right? I am your greed. I tell you stories. And you can go to xratted.blogspot.com and read my writings, my novels, my short stories. And you can go to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and that's my Gmail account, and we can have a nice conversation. And my PayPal is there, so anyone who wants to put funds in my PayPal, because my electric bill, normally my electric bill is about $30, right? And the last electric bill, which was for November, December, was, $86, right? And now the next bill coming due at the beginning of end of January, beginning of February is going to be end of December and January. So now if it stays like this, not like last night it was 50 degrees, not bad. But over Christmas it snowed, and it was in the O's during the evening and the teens during the days. And about a week before then, like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it was a whole week where the evenings were in the O's and the days were in the teens. And that's when my electric bill went from $30 to $86. So that's why, and I was able to pay it because of the generosity of a few folks. I just made it by about $7. Who sent me money on PayPal. So it's obvious that the rich aren't sending me money. People whose parents give them money don't send me money. People who have, who are trustafarians don't send me money. But people who like my show and don't have that much, they scrape a few nickels together and send it to me. And I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Now, Stephen Three Shells, complained, I can't find it. I want to give you money. And he just went on and on and on about that. And I said, pretty simple, buddy. Just go to, the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and there it is, PayPal, and put something in there, whatever. I want to give you $100. I said, well, whatever. And because I didn't, bend over for him or say, oh, I need you, I just said, whatever. He then said, well, why are you going? And then I told everyone about my Christmas, that my neighbor, whose place this is, who's never here, but he drove and saw me, and it was snow, really cold. And he said, why don't you say, I got 5 bedrooms, and and one here, and I'm getting lonely. And he had his friend with him, his army buddy, and so he said, why don't you come? So I said, sure. So I said, guys, here, let's. And I went through. I had all, I don't have refrigeration, but it's really cold, so I have, everything that needs refrigerating hanging from the trees in the shade. And so I got some vegetables, got a bag of potatoes, and a few other things I had. And I had gotten 2 of these hams out of a dumpster that were like, those, Christmas hams. And they have them like sealed, hermetically sealed, and they were frozen and somewhat cooked. It's like boiled ham, not cooked all the way, and then flavored and then sealed in this plastic thing. And they were both Hanks, and they were both good cuts. And I saw them in this dumpster, and I dove in the dumpster, and there was a whole bunch of cheese and just a box of sour creams, different flavored Mexican sour cream, Spanish sour cream, and they were all funked up and crushed, but the seals weren't broken, right? They looked funky, but the seals weren't broken. So I, put that in my car. So anyway, I put a bunch of these stuff in like a Santa bag and brought them up to their house. And I had these really interesting looking French breads, and they had been somewhat baked, but they still had another 20. All this stuff was like semi-cooked, but meant to like take out of the package and throw it in the oven and cook it for 5 minutes, and bingo, it's like you just baked bread. So I had all that stuff, and I made this food for these guys. And when they saw it, when I unpacked, I mean, I was just throwing stuff in my Santa bag, and then we got to their kitchen. I was putting it away, and it was like full of this green fuzzy stuff on the surface, and I was had it in the sink. I mean, I haven't taken a shower since last February. So over Christmas, I took 4 showers. It was like really not like I just stayed in the hot water. Anyway, so Stephen 3 Shells started bugging me about, well, you stayed those 3 days. Why'd you stay those Christmas at that guy's house? Why don't you just stay in your cold place and be cold? Why'd you go there? Because I shared Christmas with him. I made food. I made breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just like I did for John for a year and a half. The 1,800 meals that I made for John. Mostly with food I brought. Yeah, he would throw in a few dollars here and there, but normally it was he would give me money because he was what's it called? Apoplectic? No. Neurotic? No. Um, oh, when you can't leave your house and anxious, So I would do all. I would go to the post office and get all his packages. I would go shopping for him, get in his hair dye. And he is totally transactional, so he would kind of give me money for that. And I'm not going to, if somebody offers me something, I don't turn it down, because you're doing 2 things. You're neglecting your own needs, but when someone gives you something, that is an energetic thing. And if you say, no, I don't need that, or I don't want that, or I mean, look at Santa Claus. He's always giving people stuff. No one, all he gets, it's because he doesn't allow people to give him anything. So in a lot of ways, he's selfish. So when people are generous, they're doing it to extend their ability to be gracious. So I was very gracious to come in there, and they loved it because I told them stories, right? The whole time I was there, I told them stories. I read the palms. I gave them insights. And I didn't tell them, oh, you need to do this, for, 18 months with John. I tried to help John every way I could to get a life, because he's my friend. I want to see him happy. I want him see him, he has this laundry list that he just, oh, why they took my children away. No, you drove your children away. I was with you for a good 8 months at the school where they were still living in Roanoke. You could have go visit, and I would take you there, when you wanted to go see something or do something, or you had to do something in person. I would take you there, and then as driving home, I would stop at their house and then get out of the car, because the first time I did that, he was going to drive away and leave me there. So I took the keys, and the first time I knocked on the door, there's his wife. I said, hey, John's in the car. How about letting him hang with the kids? I'll be there, right? And she goes, great. Here's my car keys. All their toys, their bikes, their skateboards are in my car. Hey, kids, get in the car. And I brought them down to the park, and they played. And we did that 3 times. And then John, by the 3rd time, realized that every time I take him down, I was going to take him to his kids. So he never did that again, right? So he had a good 8 months to hang with his family, right? And I had a friend of mine who was a musician, a troubadour, and he made his living, going on tour. And so of course he's fooling around all the time. He's married, has kids, and his wife, she's smart. She got I forgot what she did. She was either a lawyer or a shrink or a doctor or something. And so what happened was, had enough, got a divorce, and left the country. She was French. And so she went back to her hometown in France and brought the kids, right? So he couldn't see his kids. And so he decides, well, I'm going to show my commitment to my family. So he got his manager to get him a tour in Europe. He got to Europe. He got himself a old funky RV, and he toured around in the RV, and he had it so he didn't just go from place to place to place. He had it kind of going near that French town, and in Europe, that's not a hard thing to do. And so, and he knew French, and so that was one of his big acts is go play in French places. And what he would do, he went to the police department the first time in that little town and said, "Listen, he had all his papers from the divorce and everything. He had rights to be with the kids, but she took him to France. So I've come to France to be with my children, and I'm going to I've taken a look, and I'm going to park my RV over here where there's this parking space for people who group go into work. They park their car there, so I'm going to there, and I'll move it during the day, and I'll be there in the afternoon, and after the but it's normally empty, and that's where I'm going to be, and it's just kind of kitty corner street from my wife, so my kids can just come and visit me." And the cops were like, "Oh, that's great, that's good, yeah, sure, no problem." So they give him a little order of like protection, and so like go to the court, get that stamped. So he's all registered, everything's all good. And so he, basically calls them up, and the kids have cell phones that he's paid for last Christmas. And so he calls them all up and say, "Kids, I'm going to be across the street. When you come home, why don't you just come, and tell your mother what's going on." Right. So he parks, and he parks a couple hours early, so she walks over like do 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 do, and "You can't be here, blah blah blah." And he goes, "No, I can. Here's an order from the court. Here's an order from the police. You can't do anything. I'm not going to go on your property, and the kids have total permission to come in here. You can't make a noise, but I'm not going to rock your boat. But I want to show you my commitment to my family, my children." And I'm no longer touring in America. I'm moved to Europe, and anyway, he spent a whole year doing that, living that RV, going on tour, making money, and giving money to he started bank accounts in their town for them, a college fund, where the money could only be put in for their college fund, right? And then he started another little account for them so they could have money of their own, right? So. And being one of the legal parents, that's the name on the bank account. So the mother didn't have any say or attachment to it. So I told John Birmingham all about this story, maybe 20 times, saying, "John, why don't you just go to Texas? Why don't you get And John has a bachelor's degree, master's degree. He could get a job, and with this pandemic teaching over the internet, he's the master of the internet. He could get a job on the internet, teach movie making, film, music, etc., make money, be in Texas, be with his kids." He hasn't seen his kids in probably 2 or 3 years physically. And that's not good for the kids. So that's why John is the canary in the coal mine, because our society is doing all of the above. Everything that John is doing, our society is doing, right? Putting money. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I? I never worry. I $400 a month, and I know the universe is going to take care of me because I am doing what the universe wants me to do, right? So, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Oh. So what's in store for 221? I'll start out with what I can start out with. Oh, my connection's unstable. Anyway, quick. Who's Steven Seashells? So, did you ever see that movie with Sylvester Stallone where he's a policeman and they get rid of putting people in jail? They cryogenically freeze them so they don't have to take care of them. And we live in a new alternative uh, dystopian fun society where all the great music are 1990s hot dog ads, and so they throw them out. And I think it's, I forget. Anyway, so he's a badass cop, and they need a badass cop because everyone's turned into sheep, and so they there's an underground of people who don't want to be sheep, so they're the last remaining real kind of humans, and so the powers that be throw out a really bad guy who they basically train to go after those people, thinking they won't go after them, right? So they start going after them. So they thaw out Sylvester Stallone, and his first day there, he goes in the bathroom. There's no toilet paper, and so where's toilet paper? Oh, and they all laugh. Oh, he doesn't know about the three seashells, and there's some kind of thing that looks like a seashell. And a seashell. I've been on islands with indigenous people, and they didn't have they had nothing. They were wearing indigenous clothes, lived an indigenous life, and they cleaned their butts with the seashells, because they could just drop them on the ground and the rain would clean them off, right? And I guess in the new technological age, whatever they did with the crap, I have no idea. So Steven Seashell is just that. He is a seashell that scrapes the effluence from the anal port of society. That's who Steven Seashell is. And I got tired of him whining about why did you go to that guy's house and had Christmas? You should have just stayed in your box and froze. Why should I send you money when you go to somebody else's house and stay warm? It's like, really? Really? So that's why that man is known as, or girl, or alien, or whatever that creature AI was. People call them trolls. He's a seashell. So, Jack, is that a good enough explanation of who Steven Seashell is? And so, what's up for 2021? Okay, so let's see. It's been an hour and 18 minutes, and it's still sunny. I thought it was going to rain by now, so I'll go on. As long as my connection's steady, and as long as you guys are still there, you're kind of going, oh no, there's one back. How about some thumbs up? Thumbs up, And welcome all, new, old, whoever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And got it. Okay. And I'm here as your griot. I tell you stories, and they're kind of stream of consciousness, although they kind of go, it's like AM radio at night. It kind of goes in and goes out. So, but they all have a shamanic frame. So even though, because I've told you about a whole bunch of things, I never got to the punchline with any of them, or most of them, I gave you the general 411, right? So the church, right? I gave you the church. So great things. We were doing all this great stuff. And so we turned the sanctuary into a music venue because it had it had a pipe organ and a keyboard for bells, and the sound was amazing. And so we did theater there, we did music there, it was jazz there, we had rock and roll there. There was a woman who was trying to. Roanoke kept being a music city, and sometimes a great music city, sometimes So there was still a movement from when it was a great movement city, and I went to these three producers and said, hey, why don't you, because they couldn't pay for the space that they were doing shows in. There was a Luck Avenue, which was the back road of this church, and because there were all these little commercial spaces that went and then these people rented them for nothing, and then they turn them into venues and are making money, and then the real estate guys charge them way more money than they could afford. And it killed the movement. And that's kind of what Roanoke would do. Something great would occur, and then the community would just kill it. So the church was that. And so it was becoming big, but instead of having only 40 people in the church, we had a few hundred, but they were black and Hispanic and LGBTQ. And lots of kids running around annoying the white people. And I was having classes. A lady who was a ballerina, she was teaching dance and computer science and a whole bunch of things, right? And so teaching Spanish and English, and so I've been at the height of that and the height of our dinner party. And part of the No Cafe at 11, I would be the maitre d' and seat people down. And those big tables, and I would have the big tables, a judge, a cop or two, some bureaucrats, some people who worked for the city, some people who worked for the hospital, some just general workers, and then a bunch of homeless folk. And I would make sure that every table was a very smorgasbord group of people. And I would sit there once they would come and get the orders. They had nice little these little pies that they would bring first. Anybody want tea? What do you want? Go get something to drink. And everyone would get their order, whatever the meal was. There was usually 3 choices for each day. Going, and then I would go over and seat more people. And we would get, in the beginning times, we were getting 20 to 40 people a day, right? We were making close to more than 1,000 every day. And the church, I said, the church should take maybe 300, and the old ladies take the rest, right? And so, because they were paying the electric bill, they were paying the heat bill, they were all those things. Well, that was still way less than, the old ladies couldn't do this. And they were having a great time. And they would come after, 3 o'clock, well, really after 1 o'clock. And they hired people to work there. So there were 5 or 6 homeless people. Like the homeless guys and gals didn't have any money. So they said, oh, well, we feel bad. I said, no. So the old ladies would come out and they put up a work schedule and they had those folks come and help them. And that made those folks get more self-worth, integrity, self-esteem, all the above. And most of them went off and got jobs and used the old ladies as in restaurants. So this was really turning out to be a great thing. And more, my friend who was basically the poster boy, he looked great on a poster, right? He looked great on the website, but he wasn't really a very good minister. He basically said the same thing over and over. He really wasn't a Bible scholar. He just placated the 40 white people. That's it, right? Now, in the beginning, they thought this was great, especially since I would spend hours with them listening to their stories, being their shrink, right? And, and the lady the Bible school, she had like 2 people going, I had like 40 people in there. Yeah, of course, they were like black and Hispanic and poor white, but those people knew their Bible. It was quite interesting, right? So we had a nice nexus for about 2.5 months, right? And the poster boy of it, the minister poster boy, he had this gig that he had stayed relevant for 10 or 20 years where because he was a missionary, he didn't go to theology school, he wasn't ordained, he wasn't any of the above. Just a good poster boy, looked good. And he did this ministry work. And so what he got his ministry, he got a nonprofit, he started a nonprofit, and he got college kids to come for 3 days to wherever he was, and he would have them stock the food pantry of some food outlet for poor people. And that was they needed a check the box of doing something socially conscious, So he would charge for each, by the head, about $500. And so each school would send him maybe 10 to 20 kids, right? So they now were sleeping. We had a daycare center, so they were sleeping up there in the daycare center at night, and he was getting abandoned buildings and buildings the city owned, and he was rehabbing them and selling for market price and basically putting it into his nonprofit, which he was getting a salary from, and so was his wife and his kids and a dog and everybody else. So and that's how churches run. That's the they advertise the good news of Jesus Christ is you're going to make money. No, that wasn't the good news Jesus was talking. What the good news of Jesus Christ, which the Bible doesn't even touch because it's a comic book written by businessmen with crayons, is that the good news was that humanity were not basic sinners. They had a choice, they had a free will. They could be their better self or their worst self, right? That's why I'm wearing two different colored gloves. Worst self, better self. Better self, worst self. Whatever color you like. So that was the church. I was through my community outreach and getting people in there. It was giving it a real shot at being the best church because I had gone for years trying to get all the different churches to work together. There's one nonprofit church. That whole ministry was to outreach to homeless people. They had $14 million worth of real estate given to them to put homeless people in. All they did was raise another $20 million to bring it up to code, and then they just sat on it, and it looked good on their brochure on their website. And they never did anything for teenage kids or And I went to all these churches and they all had amazing resources and did nothing with them. Just like this church had amazing resources, did nothing with them for 40 years. I showed up and used every square inch of the place, right? And so the old white people, they were like getting lots of pats on the backs and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of their anal retentive white friends in South or whatever neck of the woods, Roanoke, where the rich people live, were like, what are you doing? And so bottom line, so the my roommate, he needed a job because he quit his job because being that manager, they paying him nothing, he was doing everything, and they were taking advantage of it. And so I got him a job at the church because they couldn't run their own anything. And so he ran everything, and he was great. He was so organized. It was unbelievable. And then he taught himself how to play the organ. And so it would take him maybe 4 hours a day to do everything for everybody. And then he'd go up and teach himself the organ and to play the keyboard stuff. It was like the Elton John of that church. And he would just rock out on that. And so the whole church would be, and he'd be playing Elton John songs and Grateful Dead songs and churchy songs too. So he was playing the organ like it was going out of style. And so, the church was about to take off, right? So on Action Tuesdays, that's where I met this girl. And John used to call him a she, because one time the guy came up and gave me a hand moving stuff. And John looked at the form, the breasts and the hips and everything, said, wow, she's cute. She's helping you. She your girlfriend? I said, no, just a good friend. And so, because this guy had been a ranger, and he did not lose his military physique. But John is, pumping iron. He still looks like a doughboy. And so he goes, is that, and so he's trying to ask me, is this guy a guy or a girl? And the guy's here, and he shows John his penis. And John is, and runs up and, you devil, oh, you're evil, oh, and basically we're not finished. I've just spent my last $200 to get a U-Haul, and John's like, instead of giving us a hand, packing it up, he's screaming at the guy, you're evil, and the guy's just laughing at him because he's found, he, has issues with liquor, my friend, and we moved a box and it was full, as an electrician, what do you get for presents? Good liquor. And so I don't drink really. And so I had a box of liquor that I've had for years that I would bring out at parties and stuff. And this guy started hitting on this one bottle. And he was like, by the time John asked him whether he was a guy or a girl, And then he showed him his penis. It's like, what's John's reply here? I don't know. Can I read it? I didn't think she was evil. John, it's a story. Don't believe a word I say. I'm a griot. I tell a story. Don't believe a word I say, John. John is the most normal genius, most stable genius, just like our president. John is just like Donald Trump. Exactly. I mean, everything, just like Donald, successful, just like Donald, stable genius, went to the best schools. John is a brilliant, the best actor, the best musician, the best filmmaker in known history. Don't believe a word I say. And it's a sunny day. Ooh, and I feel warm. I'm in my styrofoam cup Walmart's ladies' coat. Anyway, so back to the church. So this place was humming, right? And so every Tuesday, Action Tuesday, that's where I met this girl. And when she wrote out the equation, and I wrote it down in my little notebook, and I called up a friend of mine at Duke, and I said, "Do you know this person?" "Oh yeah, we know that guy." And I said, "So he's got the cure for cancer?" And he goes, "Well, he has very interesting data, but he doesn't play nice with the other kids. And when people started to question him, he kind of lost it, and that's when we asked him to leave. So, people have issues with me. I don't care, about any. All I care about is that people can feel love in their heart. That's why I'm John's friend. That's why I haven't given up on the guy, because I want him to be happy. Now, I stayed there almost 18 months, give or take, and until he started throwing me out. And then he would beg, he did these videos of me on his channel without even telling me at first, and he made thousands of dollars, right? And then when he kicked me out and I wasn't there, and people like rebelled and didn't even watch his channel. And so he came and begged me to come back, which I did, and I'd be there a few weeks. And then they'd tell him what a jerk he was, and tell him to get, shut up and let the guy tell the story. He threw me out again, and he kept doing that like a ping pong ball. And I would go away and have an adventure, and just as I would be finishing up with the adventure, ready to where I go next, I would get a call, please come back, or I'd be someplace like I am now that I can't get any phone calls or messaging or anything unless I drive 40 miles. I would get like 7,000 messages from John. Please come back. Please come home. Please, I won't be good. I'll sorry, but never throw you out again. That was about time 12. And then another 26 times he threw me out. And those times were usually late at night, middle of winter, death defying. Can't I wait till the morning? No, get out now. And, so at a certain time, about 2 years ago, well, not 2 years ago, about 14 months ago, 18 months ago, I kind of go in 18-month spurts, 9 and 18-month spurts. So I basically said, I'm not coming back here because it's not good for John. I'm just enabling his bad habits. So he's been up there all by his lonesome, since not this last September, but the September. That was the last time I was ever up there. Was 2 Septembers ago. Anyway, back to the church. So everything was going great. And like I said, Action Tuesday, you wanted to have a meeting, have an organ, have a lecture, whatever. So the guy who was from, the Workers' Daily Workers newspaper from Richmond was having this lecture tour. These two ladies from Ukraine, and they came from Odessa. And Odessa is this beautiful city on the Black Sea, and Ukraine's a place that people, conquer all the time. So they got good at getting conquered, meaning people roll in, take over. The Ukrainians said, "Hey, good to see you," and then just be what they were before those guys showed up. Happened when the Nazis showed up, happened when the communists showed up, happened years before when everybody else showed up. So he said, yeah, these girls, and it was right just when Donnie came down the escalator, right? It wasn't like he was running against Hillary, the Republican, thing didn't really start. He just announced, right? He came down the escalator, and it was all a buzz, all a Twitter. And so, all the Mexicans are terrible rapists, but maybe there's some good people. And so, the usual suspects, I put out the word, hey, there's going to be a lecture. These ladies from Ukraine going to tell us about what's going on there. So they come, and these two girls were rocket scientists back in the Russian days, right? So one lady was schooled as a psychologist, the other was like an engineer. Curtain goes down. Engineer is really a great artist. She goes to New York, becomes a pretty famous artist, right? The girls, the psychologist, starts an advertising agency and is becoming one of the larger ones. Big time, connects with EU, making both girls making lots of money. And for 10 years, that's what they do. And so the girl who stays in the Ukraine has a house like 20 miles out of town on the sea, and she has a building in town. Well, that's where her advertising agency is. So, and every day, if the weather provides, she gets on her bike and she rides to work. It's a nice ride, and there's no traffic, and she goes right there. Not a problem, right? It's a bad day. She gets in she got a choice between her Range Rover, her Audi, and her Mercedes. I mean, this girl's got some money. Anyway, so she's riding to work. She comes out of her, she has this kind of gated thing right on the sea, and she's on her bike, and she pushes a little button around her neck, and the gates open. She rides out, and she's going down the road, and she finds a body in the road. And usually there's not even a car there, and she's sees a body, and she just kind of rides by. It's all bloody and everything, and oh, that's terrible. And she keeps going, and that shows how detached she is because she's living, a good life. She's not worrying about it, right? So, and she's not paying attention to politics or anything, and so she rides into town, and when she comes into Odessa, it's like on fire. People are screaming and shooting each other and beating each other up, and this ain't Odessa. When the Nazis came in, they didn't touch Odessa because it was a great place to come for vacation. And great food, great clubs, great restaurants, great bars, great beach. Same with the commies, everybody. But what's going on? Right? And so she goes to her building. There's a building next to hers. Luckily, there's a space on either side of her building, but there's a building, the closest building next to hers is on fire, and there are people upstairs. She runs in and gets them out and brings them into her building and locks the big metal doors she has, right? And they stay in there for 2 days and things calm down, right? And what has occurred is that when things broke up and the Ukraine became a separate stuff, and they gave their nukes back to the Russians, and let the Russians do some military stuff in their country, everybody went for the Benjamins, and so they became a very democratic country, and they were trying to join the EU, and so Ukraine had a kind of loud and hose party, like old traditionalists. They had Nazis because there were a bunch of people who liked the Nazis when they were there, right? There were a bunch of socialist, commie people who still liked the communists, right? And up there where Russia was right on their border, there were a bunch of people who were Russians, and so they kind of represented them. And then there were the people who wanted to be the EU, go for the Benjamins, and then slowly but surely, entities started to come up. I mean, they used to only have one TV. Now they got satellite, they got cable. There's hundreds of shows, and they have their own CNN. Not CNN, but they have like 5 news networks that represent different aspects, just like we do. And it's propaganda, and it's drawing people apart when they were never apart. People have different opinions, not a problem. We're all Ukrainians. Here, have a Gonski, right? So, I'm told these girls are going to come give a story. So I make because I grew up in the Lower East Side. I know what Ukrainian food is like. So first I go get some really good tea. And I go to the Middle Eastern place and get Middle Eastern cookies because they're close enough. And then I make gluntskas and porgies and cabbage soup and tea and potato pancakes and a few other specialties. And so when they show up around 4 o'clock, they're going to give their little speech at 7:30. When they show up around 4 o'clock, the whole place is a smell of amazingness. And my friend who's running the place is upstairs um, playing the organ like it's brr, brr, and so they kind of walk in and they're looking around and the smell hits them. And I said, "Come in, ladies, sit on down. It's cold out there. It's sleeting out there here." And I had an urn. There was an urn upstairs in the attic. Cleaned it out and I put, Ukrainian tea, sweet, not sweet tea, but spicy tea, and really hot. And I, poured, took it off the fire, carried it over to the urn, poured it in the urn, and gave them on these nice china teacups they had and these Middle Eastern cookies, and they were like, and they started to cry. And the guy who was there, the guy from the Workers' Day, whatever, said, "Hey, where's your McDonald's around here?" I said, "Just go out, turn left, go to the third light, turn right, go 4 blocks. There it is." And he goes, "Is there any kind of bar?" I said, "Yes, it's just go where across the street from the McDonald's. There's a bar." So I never see him again. So the girls, I give them the tea, I give them the thing, I give them a bowl of soup and a black bread because the Jamaican lady was baking bread, and I said, "Can you make black bread?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I can make black bread." So the girls are like, I got tons of jams and creams and all kinds of stuff. And so I go, "Ladies, I come upstairs." So I come upstairs, and there's the daycare center, and there's a men's room and a women's room, and both have not just bath facilities, but they have showers too. So ladies, showers in there, and there's a washer dryer downstairs. People got clothes to go. So before they go up, before they take a shower, they throw a load into the washer. We haven't washed these clothes in 3 weeks. The guy's terrible. So he's always hitting on us, and we can't stand the way he smells or acts or anything. Anyway, so they throw that in there, and they go up and take a shower, and I give them towels, and I have these big puffy bathrobes, and I said, "So, dry off, put, grab some nice comfy clothes after you get out of the shower and dry off, and change in them." And I have sleeping bags on a cushion on the floor. Daycare center. Maybe you're not. Oh, map. Oh, yes. So I go that, and an hour and a half goes by, and I, turn up the soup so it really smells, and a few other things, and the kitchen goes right on into the staircase that goes straight up to the daycare center. So all that smell is like I left the door open so the heat would go in there. And, so they wake up to that smell and they come down, and I have the full Monty dinner for them. And they're dressed in their nice, going to give you a lecture clothes. And they tell me the story about how Ukraine they're not fighting a civil war, that someone has orchestrated, right? And they talk about Manafort, right? And the other guy, the other friend, and also Rudy J. And the other guy with the white hair who wears a top hat and sunglasses. They said that these clowns had been in their country as they started up a company that did analytics, Cambridge Analytics, and those guys started Cambridge Analytics, and they figured out the social media of Ukraine, and they got everyone fighting. And they got paid hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And they said these guys fermented the revolution and the war, and now it's never ending. It's never going to end because it's take the scab off of old dissing of each other for the last few hundred years. We all could get together as Ukrainians and hate the Russians, but not even hate them, well, we got to a place where we didn't hate anybody, and that was the best way we could survive amongst ourselves. Now these guys got us hating everybody. And so what happens? They go, so it's like I said, 2015 or so. And so the crowd, the usual suspects, the neoliberals, the neoconservatives, they all come in, and these girls, and they don't even listen to the story. As soon as one of these girls said, and they made a movie of it, and the movie was like, right? And so they give a short thumb of it, and then they show the movie, and then they open it up for questions, and everyone don't even ask them any questions. They just start screaming at each other about, Hillary and Donnie and the Republicans and conservatives and the liberals and they get the people to shut up long enough to try to explain that neoliberalism is as toxic as neoconservatism, and that's when everyone right. So I was just watching this and I was thinking, I wonder if there's any more soup left. So I turn around and I go into the kitchen, and there's this homeless guy there, right? And he's going, and they have 100 years of drawers of every kind of cutlery. So he's going through this big drawer, I mean, big drawer of every kind of knife. And he is taking out the sharpest, nastiest, biggest, longest knives that are almost swords, and he's sticking them in his belt, right? And so he's got about 10 big knives in his belt and another 10 or 20 really nasty serrated knives in front of him. He's looking at him kind of going like this across his skin. And some of them are actually drawing blood. And I'm going, uh-oh, this doesn't look right. And so I go over and the urn's in there, and I get a thing of tea, and I put a few cookies on a little nice plate, and a big bowl of borscht and a big dollop of sour cream, and I put it on a tray, and I put it on the table that he's got the knives on. He is so fixated on the knives. He doesn't see me come in the kitchen, doesn't see me getting the food. He doesn't see me slide the tray next to him, and then I kind of take my empty cup and knock it on the stainless steel table, and it goes bang, 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 and it kind of he's knocked out of a trance, and he kind of. I said, I can see him smell me. I go, aren't you hungry? He goes, yeah. And I kind of moved his chair over, and I said, why don't you sit down, have a soup, have tea, cookies. Tell me about yourself. So he is a ex um, Navy SEAL. He had been deployed 18 times to Afghanistan, to Iraq, to Somalia, and about 100 other places. And he started talking about all this stuff. And all he could talk about are the people he killed. And that the only time he felt better, because he came from West Virginia, from a coal town that was dead, and all the men in his life had died of black lung. Now this, John goes, ha 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 ha. Now this ain't ha 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 ha, right? So I go, what are you doing here? I said, do you need a place to stay? Do you need, what do you need? He goes, no one's ever asked me that. I said, what? Don't you get any disability? He said, no, I did something inappropriate, and I was given a dishonorable discharge. I said, how long had you been in service? He goes, 18 years. And he then pulls out a little plastic bag, like a sandwich bag, and he's got 3 silver stars and about 5 purple hearts. He goes, well, these are the only medals I could, I have. I have a lot more, but, and I said, so do you have any stuff? Do you have any clothes? He goes, no, just what's on my back. And I go, what are you doing to knives? I says, what? I heard the voices, and they told me to draw blood here, especially those 2 women. I said, really? What voices? And I had him tell about the voices, and so this guy's definitely been trained. 18 years as a SEAL. No, those guys are like rewired. I was at Duke in 1968 when the SEAL Corporation was studying super soldiers there and paranormal psychology. and I built those guys sensory deprivation chambers. Anyway, so talk to him, and the crowd is starting to get really rowdy out there. He goes, "Should I protect you?" I said, "No. What I want you to hear is have another bowl of soup, and here is some latkes, here's some potato pancakes. And there's more food on that thing. I was going to give it to those morons, but I'm not. I want you to have whatever you need. And why don't we take all these blades and all of the how neurotic the people at this church were, that all of the cabinets with the dishes and plates that were like from forever, I mean worth zero, and all the drawers with all the everything, they had hasps with padlocks on them, right? So I had unpadlocked that and a few others for the evening, but I just closed the padlock on the I put all the knives back in the drawer and put the padlock on it and said, "You just eat and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, you just take it easy, relax, stay in that nice comfy chair. Anything you need? No, 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 I'm good." So um, I basically went out there and I said, "Okay, time to go." "What do you mean? You don't usually close this place until 11 o'clock. It's only 9:30." I said, "What is the name of tonight's? What are Tuesdays? Action Tuesday." And the action, what are the action I say that has to be positively moving? The only action here is your lips, and you're all the same. Didn't you listen to that lady's story? Didn't you watch that movie? Didn't you? And they were like, you know. And so I said, "Get out." And so the two girls looked at me. I said, "Not you ladies. You can come in. I want to introduce you to somebody." So I bring the two girls in and have them talk to the guy, the hero. That's what I call him, hero. And then I just summarily threw everybody out. And they, knew they were wrong, and they knew that Al's just being Al, and there's not much we can do about it. And he's doing it in the nicest way he could. So they're all gone. I lock the door. I go back down. And the two girls and the guy have become fast friends, right? And they've got her to tell her because one of the ladies, the advertising lady, is a shrink. And so she's well versed with post traumatic stress, right? So we stay there, and they had gone by this flea bitten, all the places that they've been staying. The money that was given to him to put them up in nice hotels, he's been basically putting them in. They've been all bitten up by bed bugs, and they're really miserable. And I said, "Well, did you like sleeping upstairs?" And they said, "Oh yeah, that was the best bed we've had this whole trip." I said, "Okay." So the they go up there, and we speak, and we were expecting Moron Boy to come back, but he didn't come back. So they slept there. The homeless guy, I had him come back to my um, place where my roommate was, and basically went upstairs with me, right? And then I said, there is no bed for you, but we have a nice couch downstairs. And my friend, she was, a Army Ranger, and she had a hair trigger. Oh, I was telling you the story about when I really realized she was a guy. We would come back from her bar. It was springtime. It was a nice evening, in May or April, and I was hobbling behind her because she just walked her, and so she's 10, 15, but she's still talking to me, and she's a little drunk, and she's in high heels, so she's a little wobbly, even though she's and we're about to go up the steps into our place, and this gang comes out, and they're gonna kill us, rape us, steal our stuff, and I see there's a police car, just a block away, and I know where he is. I know that's where he says, because I've been the last 3 months up in the attic watching the whole neighborhood, because I had a bird's eye view of everything, and what I saw mostly were all of these ministers who were going on about the LGBT community and what sinners they are, and the black folk how dirty they are, and blah blah blah. And these are all from the white, rich, abundance churches, the big temples, and so they're all going down to the down low, getting blowjobs. And so I've been, and I could have been up there with my telephoto taking pictures of all these guys and give them a hard time, but I would go to their things dressed up as everybody knew who I was, and I would go to their $1 million ceremonies in their temples, and they're Christian born again temples, and I would just sit there, right? But I would put myself in a place where, when the crowd left, they would all walk by me, right? So I did that pretty much every Sunday because all those churches were very close to each other downtown. You go downtown Roanoke, there's over 300 churches in Roanoke. Pretty amazing. And only 2 keep their doors open. One's the Catholic Church, and the other is this Sikh place. That's quite nice. Those people are very nice. Anyway, so these guys go to beat us up, and my roommate kicks off her high heels, and she takes one of them. She kicks one of them, and it flies through the air. It's straight out of a kung fu movie. Gets the guy in the eye. She picks up the other one, and she starts hitting them in their necks, with her high heel like that. And it's a stainless steel rod because, that's what they got in there. Anyway, so she's picking up their weapons and slicing them up, and the ones who can run away, and after all, and there's this one guy who really pissed her off. He ran because he got in a punch in her face, like he blindsided her. So she knocked him down, and he played dead until she made a mess of the rest of the guys. He was waiting for them to take care of her, and she took care of them. So he got up and bolted down the street, and she ran barefoot after him, and she's in a skirt, a mini skirt, and she tackles him and just beats him just like this. And I had to hobble down there and drag him. She was gonna kill that guy, right? And so when I kind of was doing this, and I was having a hard time because her adrenaline was going, the cop is there, and I said, "Larry, give me a hand with this." He goes, "I'm not getting involved." I said, "You're not getting involved?" He goes, "Well, there are no black people here. Like, there's no one for him to, innocently shoot." And I said, "What? What?" He goes, "Actually, I know 2 of those guys back there. They're sons of policemen, so nothing's going to happen here. And your friend, she won't get charged because none of these people or their fathers want it known that, 6 of these guys with weapons couldn't take care of a girl in high heels." And my friend looked at the cop like, "You're next." And I said, no, come with me, sweetie. Come on, let's go. We're going home. Get your shoes. Come on. So they kind of, got the paddy wagon. She didn't kill anybody. She just messed them up, right? And so that was around the neighborhood. She was like the guardian angel for a long time. When I wake up, the guy's gone, And I asked my roommate, "So what happened?" And then she goes, "Well, he couldn't settle down, and so I couldn't go to sleep. So I got up and got out a bottle, and we drank, and he told a lot of stories, and he felt really good. And he said that he was going to go down to the yard and get on a train and get out of the state. He didn't want to be around here because he really, really, really loved you, what you did in there." And he said, and this, my roommate, brilliant person. She got a degree in everything and experienced everything, at the age of 30 something, has the cure for cancer, but because it's really cheap and won't make any money for anybody, they said, "Well, she's a he's a transvestite, so we can't, Anyway, so the guy had left. Anyway, so that's 2 hours and 22 minutes, 22 seconds. So when we get to 2 hours, 2 minutes and 22 seconds, I'm seeing. I'll see you later because I'm getting a dry mouth and I don't have anything to drink, and it's almost 1 o'clock. Holy moly! So I'm gonna go make. I had made myself a little breakfast, so I'm gonna make myself a little lunch. So what have people been saying? Let's see if I can read this. I'm just gonna go with what Jack. Okay. If you're offering him. Let's see. Don't know why you guys. Well, Jack. If you had spent 4 years totally giving to someone, and they were just telling you, "Oh, it cost me," constantly going on about their laundry list. Oh, I need. How am I going to pay my bills? Oh, my dad is so mean. Oh, somebody they took my children away. Oh, and never ever talking about yourself. Me, I'm always self-reflecting. I'm always saying, well, how did I screw that up? How can I make it better? How can I make the best out of this situation? So yeah, and yet people go, oh, why didn't you just? I don't hate John, and I'm not really aggro about John. I just tell because one of the main reasons I was around John as long as I was that he is the whatchamacallit, the canary in the coal mine. I mean, he is. I mean, a lot of different places I am, they are like, why did I spend almost 20 years in Roanoke, Virginia? Because it was the petri dish of American culture. I mean, I get paid to look at trends in America. I used to have to travel all over the place to look at it. I realized I don't have to go anywhere. Roanoke is it. Then when I got the place in the Deep Green, when I was working at those two different universities, going back and forth, and I found this place, I realized, I still have my connections, and they still talk to me, and I talk to you guys. Boy, it's getting warm. I mean, it's getting like I have to take my coat off. Warm. It was cold when I walked up here. It was foggy. Oh, that sun is toasty. I bet you it's 60-something degrees. I bet you. So anyway, I have to put this up just to see. So, Jack, my basic thing is I try to walk a mile in everyone's shoes just to see how they are. So that's and I'm not aggro against John. I just tell stories. I agree on it. That's he's part of my my story lineage. I spent almost 4 years with the guy. So, and I've experienced him in every, and he represents in a psychological way. I mean, he's scared that they're going to come and get him and throw the net on him and take him away. Well, he is not what would, in our parlance of psychology, he's not crazy, right? What he is, he represents every neuroses in the book. Because once you start going down that hill, unless you and he's a Libra, so all he does is this. So it's pretty amazing to be in a place where someone is, and you watch his videos. Someone once said, "Oh, I wish I could laugh like him." It's kind of what they call manic depressive, but he's not. He's just a Libra. So he's like, "Oh, I'm so sad. I want to kill myself." So being around that can get a little weary. And so after the 32nd time he threw me out, I said, well, that's it. I don't want to be, all I'm doing here now is enabling him his bad habits. So I'm going to let him, have his own life, And so he has this beautiful house that he's fixed up amazingly. He has the guy who was his only renter, who is a great guy, put in free internet. He has a microwave antenna down to the mouth of the pipe. You don't have to pay a nickel for it, right? This guy put in hot water. We didn't have hot water downstairs, and he put in an amazing wood stove that I used to be able to heat the whole school with that. Now, John hasn't, I've tried to teach John how to start a fire in a wood stove. And he's got two really great, it's not, you don't even have to, I used to have a wood stove that you had to load everything in this way instead of this way. And, why? Because he just wants to push a button. And so that's why he has pretty big electric bills, And I told him, don't, you should get split system because, one big chiller for the whole place is you're going to be heating the whole joint just to heat your bedroom. I mean, so, John knows best, and it's John's house, and he owns everything. And that is an environment that, you can get little, I don't get mad or upset. When he throws me out, I would go and have an adventure, And I had, that whole church thing would have never happened unless John threw me out. That whole thing with, the learning about the LGBT community would have never happened without John throwing me out. So, I thank John for all of that. I'm not aggro at all. I love John. He's my friend. That's why I want to help him every way I can, but he doesn't let me. And every time he begs me to come and help him, he throws me. I mean, the last 5 times after last September, I didn't last more than 20 minutes. Oh, you're making me so anxious. Get out. And to travel 200 miles to be thrown out after being there 20 minutes and then not have a place to stay, I can't do that at my age and my, I'm like a teacup. So, do you get the picture, Jack? Do you understand it, Jack? Do you see what I'm talking about, Jack? Jack, do you understand, Jack? Canary in the coal mine. Yep. No, John is never out of my picture. He's just out of my presence. Until I can be safe around him, I'm really not going to be around him. I mean, I would have to be, crazy to do that, right? I'm not. So I'm not going to, I always pray for him. I'm always there for him. I talk to him. He sends me these unbelievable, messaging. I have every message he ever sent me because they were like, wow. And so, and the ones I send back to him, I would read you some, but my phone is on the fritz. So, so I'm not going to put my life in John's hands and be at jeopardy, because he usually crashes into, and he will come into my room. When I was there for a while, he would just kick the door in and want to talk to me all night long. I'd be doing a live chat. Remember, go back on my channel, and I suggest this to everyone because I think, I don't know who asked me, was it you, Jack? What's going to go on for 2021? Well, how the night, the 19, the COVID-19, you think this year was bad? Go to Cliff Hyde's channel, right? Go to his shows from early January of this year, as being the last year of 2020. And he goes, and actually he was talking about it in 2019 in December because it was kind of on the radar in China. And so no one thought it was going to come here, but they totally, whatever little safeguards had been put up because of SARS and MERS and Ebola, they took all that down. And so that's why, someone said, we need to go to war with China for giving us, they poisoned us. No, we poisoned ourselves. You look at a country like South Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, especially Thailand and Vietnam, not rich. They're not rich like South Korea is, but I think Thailand has had only 1,100 cases of the 19, and maybe 10 died. And they're a country of 80 million people. They're right next to China. Why did they? Because they really, and they didn't close down either. None of those countries really closed down. What they did do was have real serious testing and real serious, okay, you got sick, who'd you talk to? And South Korea was so good, they had it as an app So everyone's cell phones were connected. So if that guy got sick, he just looked at who we walked near, and GPS said, So that's why those countries were really good at it, and they were really good at taking care of those people. Not like the 3 counties here where they let everyone die and closed the hospital and fired the lady who was in charge. When she said, we have to start testing. They said, no, we don't. She goes, what do you mean? They said, you're fired. And they closed down public health. That is not how you deal with a pandemic, gang. So this one's gonna, and it's definitely a bioengineered weapon, because it's doing exactly what it's doing this. It's like had that first spike, and then kind of went down, and then had a couple of those spikes, and then whango, another spike, and it's going to come down, and then we're going to get the immunized, and it's going to go down, and then it's going to come back as a brilliant mutation that'll be 20 times worse, right? And again, not a lot of people will die. A lot of people get sick. There'll be a disruption, economic, social, you name it. Look at people fighting over masks. I mean, the other day, I was at Christmas time, right? And this guy pulls in front of the sports bar, and he's got this gigantic, tires taller than he is, pickup truck. Need a ladder to get in and out. And he's got his kids, and his oldest boy gets out and goes to the sports bar to see if it's open. It's open. They all get out, and he is parked, not in a parking spot, but he is parked to block 4 cars so they can't get out. Now, I'm luckily not one of them, but I am the one closest to the front of his car. But I'm, where my car is and his truck is illegally parked is like maybe 10 feet away. So they're all getting out, and they're all walking towards the sports bar. It's pretty obvious he doesn't even have his blinkers on. He just parked his car, because I see him lock up his car. So I kind of put on my blinkers, and because his thing is so big, I can't see who's coming this way, right? So I'm going beep, beep, just like trucks have, beep, beep, not like leaning on the horn, just beep, beep, beep. He turns around and sees me back. He comes running over and goes, what are you doing? And I said, what's it look like I'm doing? I am trying to get out of the parking spot that you haven't truly blocked like these other 4 people, and you're just going to go in there and have lunch? Yeah, what's it to you? I said, well, what's it to those 4 people? I said, what's it to them? I don't care. And then I said, and he goes, if you hit my car, I would have killed you. I said, kill me? And he lifts his jack up, and he's got one of those holster things that you stick in your pants and your guns there, and he's got it right over his manhood, right? So obviously he has a small manhood because he has to replace it with a automatic weapon, and he puts his hand on it, and I'm going, I rolled down the window just enough so he can really hear him. I said, buddy, God loves you. Jesus loves you. And I love you. And why don't you love yourself or your children? Do you think this is any good for your kids? You got 2 little ones, 2 teenagers, and a grown boy who is acting just like you. He's got his hand on his piece. So, really? I'm 10 feet away from your car. I'm not going to touch it. I just put on the blinkers and lights so the car that's trying to get by you won't run into me. And that's when I hear, the police car, beep, 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 when they hit their thing, and instead of giving the real siren. And the guy turns on his blues, and the lights are blinking. And he comes over, he sees it's me, and it's a policeman I know. And he calls me the professor, because I see every time I'm in the Walmart's parking lot, and there's the Walmart's, the Dollar General, and the Food Line, my 3 favorite stores. And so, and I get a good, signal there too. So so that cop that's part of his, he kind of goes through the parking lot, and that's part of his thing. And one day I was hobbling across the street, and the cop came by, and I put my hand out for him to stop, and he stopped. Yes, sir. And I said, roll down your hand. Let me see. This is before the 19. I said, let me see your palm. I gave him a reading, and we talked for an hour. And he said, I told him my story. So he calls me the professor. That's, whenever I said, and every time he comes through the thing, he'll kind of, give the little squeak of his police car and wave. It rolls because their windows are black. Can't even see in them. So he rolls it down. He waves. It makes a big effort to wave and get my attention. And sometimes I'll go over. We'll talk some more. And he always has questions about life. And so, he's one of the adepts. He watched this show and the whole thing. And hi there, Carl, if you're there. So anyway, so he stops and he's looking at what is there any trouble here? I go, no, there's no trouble. Because I look at the guy's arms, the kid, right? He's like 20 something. And he's got prison tattoos. So he's ex-con, he's on parole, or maybe he's like broken out, but he's got a weapon on him. That's not going to be good. And his daddy, I don't see any tats on him, but for his son to act the way he's doing, his daddy's no angel. And so I said, no, we're just talking. He goes, sure. And he goes, sir, are you just stopping to let these people off? And I go, yep, that's what he says. There's a parked car right over there. And so, Carl goes, so, Professor, you have it underhand? I said, yes. I said, I overstand everything here, Carl. And so Carl drives away. And the guy goes, you're lucky the cop here. I said, buddy, that guy was just about to roll your whole family. And I'm leaving. So have a good Christmas. So I left. Now, I knew Carl was going to just come back, and if that guy hadn't parked the car over there, which it looked like he wasn't going to do, he would have kicked the door in. I won't find out about what happened until a week or two when I go back that part of the county. But that is just like the girls we're talking about in Ukraine, right? This attitude towards people. Now, one of the reasons why I'm still John's friend, and I will always be John's friend, is that not only is he a benchmark, not only is he a canary in the coal mine, but he's also, it's like, he works out with his weights, right? In the weight machine. Well, John is really good for my soul because the more he does mean, cruel, really out of his way, bad things to me. Doesn't have to. I don't do any of that to him. All I do is kind, considerate, take care of him, look after him. Now, I won't put myself in harm's way by being around him until he changes. And I've told him this. I said, hey, I'll be there. If you are ready, willing, and able to want to change yourself, to want to really go get your kids, want to have a life, I'll be there to help you. But I'm not going to be around. Oh, please come. You just, like you see it on this one. Just drive in for New Year's Eve. Like I'm going to drive 200 miles with a car that I don't even know if it's going to make it. I looked down, I realized I thought I had like 160,000 miles on a car. I have almost 210,000 miles on that car. And I don't have the money to fix it, So, no, if I'm not within, 10 or 15 miles of a mechanic I know, I don't go anyplace, right? So that's the story, I don't go anyplace unless I really have a secure place to go to and stay. And I don't go anyplace unless I'm, 10 to 20 miles close to a mechanic I know who will fix my car and let me pay him on my arm. So anyway, so that's it. I've talked now for 2 hours. Okay, so when it gets to 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds, that's a good time. I am gonna kind of, where's the cursor? I can't even see it. There we go. Okay. So when it comes 2, I'm gonna go. So what else are you saying here? Let's see. Yeah, okay. Oops, no. Let's see. Anyway, enough of that. So looks like Jack is another one of those trolley guys. And I think all the trolleys that bother me are John Birmingham, but I can't really tell. But they basically, there was Yo-Yo and Three Shells and a bunch of others, but they're basically have the same syntax. So anyway, I just tried to hide him, but somehow it doesn't seem to want to hide him. So, and that's what I'm saying. John is a master of the internet. He can do anything with it. I mean, he still makes money on my shows. I mean, the ones I did on his thing, and he's never put a link where, because thousands of people still look at my stories on his channel. If he'd only put a link so they would come here, I'd have a little more than the almost 400 subscribers I have, but that's all right. Because 2021 is either going to be a year where people really are going to realize love's co-creation, or it's going to just go off the cliff. Because one of the things that is going to go is the internet. That little, they don't really talk about it anymore, but it was the largest hack of systems known to man on Earth, right? And so that little hack is in pretty much every system there is. So, we have utilities that are run on the internet and from like 1960s technology. So, I mean, some 8-year-old in a basement could hack that shit. So you have about 170 reactors in the United States, big ones too, that have ancient technology that have been running 20 years longer than they should, thanks to Ronald Reagan's executive order, and making the utilities, Mr. Rothschild, a ton of money. And that was what 3marow was. It was somebody made a mistake on putting a thing in, so the computer thought it was doing this when it wasn't, and bingo, that was 3marow, right? And the kind of nuclear accidents we would have in the United States will be what Fukushima. So go Google Fukushima, and then imagine 172 of those kind of accidents all across the United States. And then imagine them in the middle of hurricane and tornado and fire season. Imagine that. Right at the time when everyone's 19 is going down, and then it's spiking through the roof, way, 500 times what it is right now. Just imagine that. And that will be 2021, unless we start to become, Jack made a little quip, who's called a guy on whatever that TV show was, Does that sound like an empathetic person? Right? If more Americans and more people on Earth are like that, like Jack, Jack White, is that his name? Jack White. Is that a psychic slip? So Jack, are you wearing a hood, a white hood with holes in it? Now I'm a snarky, little monkey, but I just kind of tell stories. That's it. It's what you do with those stories. Now I love you all. Even you, Jack White. Okay. So it's supposed to rain the next few days, so I'm probably not going nowhere. And it's already in the afternoon. Who knew? Okay. Love you guys. Talk to you later.